Greetings, gaming citizens, Mike here. With the Switch 2 on the horizon and a slew of games and info announced in the recent Direct, I wanted to dive into a feature of the Switch 2 that could be really cool if it turns out to be real. On March 28th, Spanish YouTuber Ecstasis published a video where he talked about the mysterious C button on the Switch 2. He claimed that this button would allow for Switch 1 consoles to be used as controllers, similar to a Wii U gamepad. Of course, now we know the C button's actual use is for voice chat, but that got me thinking. If this idea were to become a reality later down the road, the possibilities this feature could have for the Switch 2's library would be extensive. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This video is going to be split up into 3 different sections, as there are 3 different kinds of games I wanted to see on Switch 2. Originally, this video was just going to be me exploring this Switch as a controller feature, but after seeing that GameCube got announced for Nintendo Switch Online, I started going down the rabbit hole of what games I want to see come to the service as well. Then I also wanted to bring up any ports or remasters or other things that could come to the Switch 2 thanks to the better hardware. Without further ado, let's take a dive into what games I want to see come to the Switch 2. Let's start with the original premise of this video, the hypothetical dual screen functionality. While this is not confirmed and honestly is not even in the thoughts of Nintendo at all, it did sound like a cool idea to bring some dual screen games to the Switch 2. So this immediately got me thinking of games from the DS era that would have a great home on the new system. If anyone from Nintendo was watching, take some notes, because I got some ideas. First off, we have Spectrobes. To most of the human population, you might be asking, what the f*** is a Spectrobes? Spectrobes was developed by Jupiter and was Disney Interactive's answer to Pokemon, in that it was another RPG that involved collecting and battling with creatures. What made Spectrobes stand out, however, was the way you collected and evolved your creatures. Rather than just finding them in the wild, the player would have to find fossils, dig them up using a range of tools, then take them back to their spaceship and bring them to life. It was a really cool concept, so much so that the first game sold over 700,000 units in its first month. The series would go on to spawn 2 more entries, one on the DS and one on the Wii, but then it died off pretty quickly. While I can't find an actual statement given, I think it's a safe bet that the focus on Disney Infinity and the later dissolution of Disney Interactive contributed to Spectrobes not seeing the light of day. While it is unlikely that we'll see the return of Spectrobes due to Disney only really publishing games that use their IP as of late, I think bringing this series back on Nintendo Switch 2 would be pretty cool since you can use your Switch screen for uncovering fossils. It's such a cool concept, and it's a shame the series didn't continue past its 3rd entry. Of course, while a new game would be awesome, I'd also be content with remasters of all 3 games just so that they're more accessible. Who knows, maybe the Switch family of systems can breathe new life into the franchise. If Pal World can shake up the creature collecting genre in the 2020s, anything is possible at this point. Going off the Spectrobes tangent, there was yet another fossil-based creature collecting game that made its mark in the DS era. This series was called Fossil Fighters. The first game came out here in North America on August 10th, 2009, and was yet another case of a well-received game series with only 3 entries that ultimately fizzled out. The game consisted of players going to dig sites and collecting fossil rocks to obtain part of a dinosaur skeleton. The fusion of all the parts would be put into a revival machine and would give the player an elementally charged dinosaur fighting companion, which would be used to fight other creatures. Combat was turn-based, with the player being able to have up to 3 creatures on the battlefield at once in the attack and support zones, and attacks are initiated by spending fossil power, which is granted to the player each turn. It's a simple but effective gameplay loop, so much so that Fossil Fighters is still looked back on as a cult classic from the DS. The series was never heard from again after the 3rd game released on the 3DS in 2015 outside of Japan, likely due to the reception being mixed at best. Unlike the first 2 games, which were developed by Nintendo's Software Planning Division, or SPD, which has since been consolidated into the larger Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development, or EPD, the 3rd game was developed by Spike Chunsoft. So it could be that Nintendo wanted to hand development off to another studio to focus on their own projects. As it stands now, the developers are either a part of Nintendo EPD, a support studio for Nintendo, working on other projects, or are just defunct entirely. But as far as I'm concerned, Nintendo still holds the rights to the Fossil Fighter series if the trademark renewal from 2021 is anything to go by. So I don't think it would be too difficult to have an external studio bring the series back, or even have Nintendo EPD work on it in-house. The next game I want to see come to Switch 2 is Pokemon Ranger. I grew up with the first game and played it over and over countless times. With the Switch 2's mouse controls, this kind of game would be perfect for showing off the system's new features. If Pokemon wanted to go the extra mile, they can even bring all 3 games to the system. Guardian Signs would be a cool addition because you can use the mouse functionality on the Switch 2 to draw the symbols to summon partner Pokemon. My only hesitation when bringing this up is the gameplay loop. Pokemon Ranger was good, don't get me wrong, but it was also very difficult to draw circles around certain Pokemon. If you know, you know. Hopefully, if they go with this idea, they will make the controls just as user-friendly as they were on DS. One of the most exciting pieces of news from the Switch 2 Direct was that GameCube would be coming to Switch Online. Yes! Yes! Let's go!
Nintendo Switch Online.
Yes! It was just
More
those.
titles will be added in
Pokemon
the
XD!
future.
Oh my god, GP Pro! Dude! Pokemon Coliseum! Oh my god!
Nintendo GameCube.
Yes!
Nintendo Cla-
While the lineup they showed was very exciting, this got me thinking of a bunch of other GameCube games that I want to see brought to the service. In fact, it got me thinking about this so much that I decided to break out into song. Take it away, me. Kirby Air Ride, Twilight Princess, Double Dash, Crazy Taxi, Custom Robo Revolution, Metroid Prime 2 Geist, Animal Crossing Eternal Darkness, Harvest Moons, Mario Golf, Mario Party, 4, 5, 6, 7, Sonic Heroes, Sonic Riders. Star Fox Adventures, Mario Baseball, adding Cubivore, and don't forget Odama. Ikaruga Smash Bros, Wario World, WarioWare, Skies of Arcadia, Sonic Shadow, Beautiful Joe. We want these games on Switch too. Nintendo GameCube would be really cool, dude. We want these games on Switch too. Add all these games or a fool will be you. Random musical numbers aside, there is one more major category of games I want to see on Switch 2, and that's games from other systems. Throughout the Switch 1 life cycle, we saw games get ported to the system that we thought would not really be possible otherwise. Games like The Witcher 3, Doom Eternal, and Hogwarts Legacy all somehow made it onto the original Switch, even if it wasn't the most appealing version of said game. With the Switch 2's far superior specs, I think we will once again see a handful of games make their way to the Switch 2 that will make people go, wow, they got this to run on a hybrid system? Here are a few games that I think would spark this type of shock value. The first that comes to mind is the Souls series. On the Switch, we curiously only saw the first Dark Souls game get remastered for Nintendo Switch. After a bit of digging, it seems that sales numbers and overall performance impacted how high the priority was for FromSoft to keep pursuing the Switch. Now that we have a system that is more than capable of running PS4 and Xbox One games, I think this might be a good opportunity for FromSoft to commit to more support for the Switch 2. We're already seeing this with their new title Duskbloods, which was shown off in the Switch 2 Direct. So I think it's not absurd to think they would want to look into bringing more of their catalog to the system. Plus, seeing them port Bloodborne before Sony actually remasters it for PS5 would be very funny. Speaking of developers with iconic catalogs, let's take a look at Rockstar. Back in 2021, we got GTA The Trilogy Definitive Edition, which was the bare minimum of a video game. There were all kinds of bugs and glitches, making the trilogy largely unplayable or at the very least, unenjoyable. With the Switch 2 on the horizon, I think it would be a good chance for Rockstar to make good with the Switch platform in their games by porting over Red Dead 2 and GTA 5. I hesitate to suggest GTA 6 because as of the writing of this video, it's only known to be coming to just PC. Plus, even if it did come to PS5 and Xbox Series X, I have a hard time believing a game of that scale could reasonably work on a device like the Switch 2. But hey, if they can make it work, I would be very interested to see how it looks. Okay, this next one isn't really a game, but the library that Game Pass offers is too big to not at least highlight. In the past, Phil Spencer has declared interest in bringing their first-party games to Nintendo systems. As a result, we saw games like Cuphead and the Ori duology brought to the Switch 1. I could see Xbox working with Nintendo to bring most of their catalog of over 470 games to the new system, allowing for newer titles like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered to be accessible by new audiences. Also, to add more value, Game Pass has a wide selection of indie titles like Blueprints and 33 Immortals that would be fantastic additions for Nintendo audiences. Plus, imagine how funny it would be to play the latest Call of Duty with the game chat feature and Switch 2 camera. The jokes write themselves. I've got one more game that I think would be awesome on the Switch 2. But for this one, we're putting on the tinfoil hats and diving into speculation territory. It's time for a legally distinct video game theory. This theory stems from the two big features of the Switch 2, game chat along with its camera, and mouse controls. My theory for the Switch 2 is that Nintendo is looking to dive into the live service hero shooter trend that has been spreading around the industry for the past few years. Now, I know this is not a popular idea for many fans of Nintendo, or even just gamers burnt out from all the live service games that are out there now, but I think Nintendo can spin things around with its own IP. It makes sense for Nintendo of all companies to pursue this idea. Outside of the fact that Nintendo has a large library of established intellectual property, they can also take notes from previous live service failures from their competitors. Concord failed due to not bringing new ideas to an already oversaturated genre, while also charging $40 while similar games are usually free to play. Marvel's Avengers had a boring gameplay loop and egregious monetization. Anthem was built on an engine that didn't quite accommodate it well and had a studio working on it that didn't have experience with live service titles, aka BioWare. With how Nintendo likes to train their younger talent and encourage experimentation, as well as throw in some innovative or interesting twists to gameplay loops that already exist, like with Mario Kart, I think they could theoretically do it, and I feel like the social features and mouse controls on the Switch 2 are their first step in this direction. I would not be surprised if this ends up not being the case entirely, but it's an idea I wanted to throw out there at the very least. What other games do you want to see come to the Switch 2? Let me know in the comments down below, because I'm almost certain I missed a few noteworthy titles in this video. That's going to be it for me. Stay vibing and thriving, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.